April 2, 2020. Inside a quiet executive office in Beijing, the glow of a laptop screen reflected off a man who had not slept in days. The spreadsheet in front of him told a story that could never be explained away. Entire columns of revenue did not exist in the real world. They existed only inside computers. He closed his eyes, inhaled slowly, and made the call that would erase billions in market value within hours. What he said next would bring down one of the fastest growing companies on Earth. But the most terrifying detail was still hidden, waiting to be revealed. Before we dive deeper, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments. And if you love dark, shocking scam stories that expose how power really works, subscribe to Scamsphere right now, because once you hear how this fraud was engineered, you will never trust corporate success stories the same way again. Luckin Coffee was not supposed to fail. Founded in 2017, it was designed like a weapon built for speed. No cash registers, no conversations, no waiting in line. Customers ordered coffee through an app, picked it up, and left. Every store was small, cheap, and optimized for volume. The founders promised to defeat Starbucks in China not through quality or atmosphere, but through data, discounts, and relentless expansion. The strategy worked. Luckin Coffee exploded across Chinese cities like wildfire. Stores opened faster than regulators could count them. Free coffee coupons flooded phones. Buy one, get one deals trained customers to keep coming back. Losses were framed as investments. Executives claimed dominance mattered more than profit. Investors believed them. Within 2 years, Luckin Coffee surpassed Starbucks' in-store count inside China. Media outlets celebrated it as a national champion. Analysts praised its aggressive growth. The narrative was irresistible. A homegrown startup beating a global giant at its own game. When Luckin announced its intention to list on the Nasdaq, Wall Street welcomed it with open arms. The initial public offering was a spectacle. Shares surged. Institutional investors piled in. Hedge funds saw limitless upside. Luckin raised hundreds of millions in fresh capital. The company promised even faster expansion. The more stores it opened, the more impressive the revenue numbers became. But behind the glass walls and polished presentations, something was rotten. Luckin's reported sales growth was mathematically improbable. Stores appeared crowded on paper, but real foot traffic told a different story. Discounts were extreme. Promotions never ended. Revenue rose faster than cash ever could. Some employees quietly questioned how the numbers worked. Those voices were ignored. Inside the company, the pressure to deliver growth was absolute. Targets were not suggestions, they were demands. Executives were rewarded for expansion, not accuracy. The system quietly shifted from exaggeration to fabrication. Transactions were created. Vouchers were recycled. Related companies were used to fake purchases. Money moved in circles, creating the illusion of massive demand. At the center of it all stood the Chief Operating Officer, Jian Liu. According to internal findings, he orchestrated a scheme that manufactured sales on an industrial scale. Fake transactions flowed through third parties. Entire revenue streams existed only on spreadsheets. Over time, fabricated sales reached approximately 2.2 billion yuan, roughly $310 million. The deception was sophisticated, but not invisible. In early 2020, an anonymous report surfaced accusing Luckin Coffee of massive fraud. The document was detailed, ruthless, and supported by extensive data. It alleged inflated transaction counts, fake customers, and fabricated revenue. It claimed the business was not just exaggerating growth, but inventing it. Luckin responded with denial. Executives dismissed the allegations as malicious attacks by short sellers. They reassured investors. They promised transparency. For a moment, the market hesitated. Then it waited. The waiting ended on April 2nd. Luckin Coffee announced that its own investigation had confirmed fabricated sales. The admission detonated the stock. shares collapsed by more than 80% in a single day. Trading was halted. Billions evaporated. Investors watched helplessly as their screens turned red. Executives were fired almost immediately. The chief executive officer was removed. The chief operating officer vanished from public view. Board members resigned. Auditors expanded investigations. What was once celebrated as a miracle became a warning. Employees inside Luckin described chaos. Meetings were canceled. Projects frozen. Managers disappeared overnight. Trust evaporated. Regulators moved in. Lawsuits followed. Every success story was re-examined through the lens of deception. But the most unsettling realization came later. Luckin Coffee was not a failing business that lied to survive. It was a functioning business that lied to grow faster. Stores were real, coffee was real, customers existed. The fraud was layered on top of reality, designed to accelerate domination and inflate valuation. That distinction made the scandal far more dangerous, because it meant the system had rewarded deception, and the story was far from over. When most companies are exposed for fraud on this scale, the story ends with ruins and prison sentences. Luckin Coffee chose a different path. After the admission, regulators in the United States launched investigations into accounting fraud and investor deception. The company faced enormous legal pressure, not just from authorities, but from thousands of furious shareholders who felt betrayed by a carefully constructed illusion. Luckin eventually agreed to pay a $180 million penalty to settle charges related to misleading investors. It was a staggering sum, yet small compared to the damage inflicted. Billions in market value had vanished. Retirement funds were wiped out. Confidence in foreign listings suffered a serious blow. Still, something strange happened. While Wall Street burned, Luckin stores in China stayed open. Baristas kept serving coffee. Customers kept ordering through the app. New drinks were launched. Discounts returned. To the average consumer, the scandal felt distant, almost invisible. The company quietly shifted focus from expansion to survival. In early 2021, Luckin Coffee filed for bankruptcy protection in the United States. This move was not about shutting down operations. It was a legal shield designed to manage lawsuits and restructure obligations. In China, the business continued running almost uninterrupted. Behind closed doors, ownership changed. New investors stepped in. Old executives disappeared from official roles. Internal controls were rebuilt. The company cut costs, closed underperforming stores, and focused on profitability rather than domination. Slowly, unbelievably, Luckin Coffee stabilized. This outcome shocked many observers. A company exposed for fabricating hundreds of millions in revenue was supposed to be finished. Instead, it adapted. The scandal faded from daily headlines. Customers moved on. New management rebranded the narrative. Luckin was no longer a disruptor. It became a disciplined operator. Years later, Luckin Coffee reported profits. The same brand that had once deceived investors now claimed financial discipline. Stores expanded again, cautiously. Marketing shifted away from explosive growth toward value and consistency. Eventually, Luckin even returned to international expansion. New stores appeared outside China. The company that once symbolized corporate fraud now attempted to rebuild legitimacy. The uncomfortable truth was impossible to ignore. Luckin Coffee survived because its fraud targeted investors, not customers. The product worked. The operations functioned. The lie lived in the financial statements, not the cups. This scandal exposed a deeper flaw in modern capitalism. Growth is rewarded more than honesty. Speed is celebrated more than sustainability. Companies are incentivized to impress markets at any cost. When deception succeeds, even temporarily, it reshapes behavior across entire industries. Luckin's executives were not criminals hiding in basements. They were celebrated leaders, attending conferences, ringing bells, and giving interviews. The fraud did not happen in darkness. It happened under applause. And the consequences were uneven. Executives were removed. Some faced penalties, but many investors never recovered losses. Trust in global markets suffered. The lesson was brutal and clear. By the time fraud is visible, the damage is already done. Luckin Coffee became a case study taught in business schools and whispered in boardrooms, a warning wrapped in a paradox. A company can lie, collapse, and still survive if the underlying business remains intact. That reality is more terrifying than bankruptcy, because it means fraud is not always fatal. It means success stories should be questioned, not admired blindly. It means explosive growth deserves skepticism, not celebration. It means numbers should never be trusted without understanding incentives. The Luckin Coffee scandal was not just about coffee. It was about power, pressure, and performance theater. It was about how easily narratives override evidence. It was about how markets reward confidence even when it is built on fiction. And it was about how quickly the world forgets. Today, many customers have no idea what happened. They order coffee, scan QR codes, and move on. The scandal lives on only in lawsuits, case studies, and stories like this. That should worry everyone. Because if this happened once, it can happen again. Somewhere right now, another company is growing too fast, reporting numbers too perfect, telling a story too clean. And when it collapses, people will once again ask how no one saw it coming. If you think this scam was dark, wait until you hear the next one. The next story makes this look like practice. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and welcome to Scamsphere.